24. I'm your host, Blaine Pudvey, and I'm joined now by a very special guest, someone that I've been trying to get for a little while and finally got him. Simon Tsalikas, welcome to the show.
Dane, how you doing?
Oh, great now. It's bucket list check. Got Simon on the show.
Yeah, okay. That's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of pressure.
We all have our little bucket list checklists, and hey, one by one, I'm checking them off.
That's it, man. Why not? It's a great thing. It's funny because we couldn't do this 20 years ago. I don't want to get old man on you or anything like that. But here in the city, Melnick and Mitch Garber used to do sports radio, and grew up a lot with a guy named Ted Teven. And you never got to chat with them. You never got to do anything with them, So, and whether it's just listener or social media friends or stuff like that, it's cool. I enjoy doing this.
Yeah, I really like how the world kind of seems smaller because of this. It's I like how technology is going, but at the same time, I don't. It's kind of weird.
That's the parent in you, and me too.
Yeah, exactly.
Talk
Like,
about it with
how
my
do I
wife.
protect my kids from it?
Exactly. We talk about it with my wife. Like both daughters got phones in grade 7, right? Because they started to take the city bus and get on the bus and
Yeah.
this and that. And heaven forbid your kid goes to school and doesn't have a cell phone. I don't know what the consequences and I don't know what kind of therapy those kids would have to go into if they were the ones that showed up without a cell phone.
Well, my youngest one's 13. He doesn't have one yet.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. Keep it up. Good luck with
Well,
that. You're like a hero.
he just doesn't. The school's just right here. Like it's like a 20-minute walk from the front door,
Mm-hmm.
and walk to school, walk back. He gets home. He plays video games all day. So why does he need a phone?
There you go, man. That's good. I like that. I like that.
And even if he had one, he'd never answer it anyway.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because when you're searching for them or you're calling for them, very rarely it goes straight to voicemail.
Especially those teenage girls.
The worst.
Ooh.
The worst.
Anyway, I don't want to get too deep into that because my PTSD will kick in on my on raising teenage daughters.
There you go.
Okay, so today we're just going to talk about the trade and the deadline coming up. We'll shoot the breeze, and whatever we talk about, we talk about. I don't want to take up too much of your time, so why don't we just start with the trade? Gurianov, what do you think of that move?
Um, I loved it, and I joined the morning show, and and they had asked us, "Is it a home run?" I said, "It's not a home run, but it's a triple." And Connor felt it was a single, but I felt it was a triple just because it's the low expectations, but you really got rid of an asset that was, I'm not going to say worthless. That's an ugly word, but there wasn't a lot of value there. I love the signing. Again, I love the signing in the offseason for Dadonov. And I like those 1 year. I think, you sprinkle, if you're not a team that you think is playoff bound, not a bad thing to sprinkle your lineup with a couple of guys that you just hope, man, get to 16, 17 goals, maybe get to 40 points. And then, you're seeing what some of these players are going for come deadline. They're valuable assets, but it didn't play itself out like that with the Canadiens and the Dadonov. So I don't think there's a much value there. And I'm thrilled that it wasn't a fifth pick, fourth pick, or something along those lines. Highly likely a player that was never going to play. And if he was going to play, it was probably going to be in 2-3 years from now. So they got an asset. You can say bigger, stronger, faster, younger as well. And this kid's got 20 games to showcase himself. And whether he's part of this team going forward or he wants to showcase himself for somebody else, you bet on him a little bit. But I like the move. Again, I don't take this over a second round pick, but I just don't believe a second round pick was on the table here. I think they were probably getting stuff in the 4th and 5th rounds, if anything. So they said, you know what, let's roll the dice. So I liked it a lot. I really did.
Well, I'm looking at the return, and it's Dadonov at 50%. So it's $2.5 million to Dallas. Dallas gives up a player that in their mind is probably a bust, making 2.9. So they get a more proven asset. They save money. So that kind of shows the level of value that Dadonov had. So to get something of an actual NHL player in return, I think that's a good trade-off. And even if he doesn't turn out, he's a warm body to fill a role in the NHL, and that keeps them from having to call up someone else from Laval. And with Laval going for a playoff run here, they're trying to make the playoffs. Pulling more players out of there would just be detrimental to that.
Absolutely. And I think I like it for Dallas too, right? There's been moments like I don't think the Dadonov hurts you. I don't think he's a liability out there, and he does have a history with the Stars, coaching staff. So I think there's a positive there. So I'm even looking for Dallas perspective. You're so loaded with your top six that if you can just start to plug in maybe some NHLers who also like if he's playing for a contract next year and he wants to showcase himself a little bit, man, that's a good team to do it. You're probably going to get not tons of responsibilities, very limited power play time, but I think Lekkonen's a better player than him. But look what Lekkonen did when he was pressed into that higher up in the lineup. I do think Lekkonen is more talented, but he got to showcase himself at the highest level, and it really paid off for him. So I think both teams got what they wanted. Dallas going to sit there and pray that he kind of fills out their bottom six. And again, the Canadians got somebody that they can plug. And you're right about the Laval team, right? Because the Habs, it's been a bad year, and the Laval team has been kind of hot and cold. I'm a big believer that the American Hockey League has to see some type of success. It's nice to develop, which is probably that's the mandate. That's what you want to get done. But I look at the way the Lightning did it a few years ago when John Cooper started in their American Hockey League team. They won championships, and you kind of started that, and then you start to plug guys into your lineup that know how to win, know what it takes to win, don't like losing. So the Laval team, how long does Raphael Harvey-Pinard stick around? Maybe Belzile goes back down, because I think I'd say you owe it to them, but that team's put himself back into a playoff contention, and I think maybe sending a couple of players back wouldn't be a bad thing either.
Well, they sent Schoeneman back yesterday, just before heading out to San Jose. So that's going to help them defensively. Their defense has been decimated because of all the call-ups as well. Losing Barron really, really hurt them.
Yeah.
And as excited as fans are to see Barron in the NHL and Justin starting to find his feet, Laval could have really used him. I think they would have probably be, instead of being in fourth in their division, they might be third, maybe second, had they kept him.
It's funny how that played itself out, right? Like you had Caden Goulet, who was playing at a high level, and I think he's penciled himself in as a top pairing guy going forward. I don't know I want to see how easy the offense comes to him. I don't think it will. I don't think it has to. I don't think he's that guy. But a little bit of that silver lining that Goulet went down is we got to see a little bit more of Harris and Barron at the expense of some development, or maybe not development, because I don't think the guys have looked that bad out there, but some wins and losses at the expense of the Laval Rocket, standings. But I really like what I've seen from Barron and Harris. And I just, going forward, I think this team, when they eventually turn the corner, I think it's going to be led by that blue line. I think Matheson will be part of it. Logan Mailloux, Lane Hudson, maybe somebody in free agency would be nice. Jacky as well, he fits in. He probably has his spot more solidified than anybody else because of what he brings and what he provides. The other guys don't. But a little bit of that silver lining from the Caden Goulet going down sucks for the Rocket, but getting to see Barron play at the NHL on a regular, I think that's a very big deal. I think that's actually massive. It's a little bit underplayed, but coming into next year, he's going to put 60, 70 NHL games in. That's a big number. That's a nice number.
Yeah, and seeing all the rookies on the blue line, all of them performing so well through the year, at different times, of course, and at some games all at the same time. There was a couple of games where they had 5 rookies on the blue line. So the level of play that they've provided, you can't really complain about how they've produced and how they've played, which says quite a bit about the future, because if they're already at that level now, they'll improve a little bit. And I mean, they're all mobile. They all box out well. There's different levels of physicality, clearly, with Jacky there too. Gooley, and once they get that anchor defenseman added to that blue line, I don't think it. I think that's really the biggest piece of the rebuild at that point.
I think so too, and I think that Nick Suzuki is a very good player. For him to get to a point a game player, I think there's a lot of, he's got to develop and he's got to get better, and Cole Caulfield's got to get better. But my goodness, it's going to be a lot easier for Nick Suzuki to get to that 82-point mark when his blue line consists of 4, maybe 5 individuals that know how to carry the puck out, know how to outlet, the ability to transition from defense to offense, like that. I think it matters. You look around the league, we talk about the brilliant season the Bruins are having, and Bergeron and Pasternak. I don't believe it's that. Those guys are elite, and Bergeron's going straight to the Hall of Fame. But Lindholm and McAvoy and everybody else on that blue line. You look at Carolina too. There's not a lot of guys in Carolina. I think Sebastian Aho might be the only guy that's a point-a-game player. They come at you, they come at you by committee. But again, I think both those two teams, the two best teams, I think, and throw in the Rangers the hell in there too. On the blue line, nobody handles the puck. I'll go military here on you. Nobody handles the puck like a hand grenade. They know what to do with it. Gone are the days of just, get it out off the glass. They jump into transition. And you talked about when they had those 5 rookies in the lineup. I remember like the Super Bowl weekend, the 2:00 games or whatever they were. Got to watch every minute of those games, and that was a great weekend for those young blue liners. So I'm with you. This team's going to turn the corner, and everything's going to help, right? And I think if it's Montembeault or Allen or whoever is in net, they're only going to benefit from having guys in front of them know what to do with the puck. And that also means in the offensive end. Like we always talk about how good you have to be in your own end of the rink, and like Connor McDavid is brilliant at playing defense. It just happens to be his defense is with the puck completely the other side of the rink and him in possession with it. So that's a great way to play defense too. You just don't give your opponents the puck. So I think with these young blue liners, they're going to help the entirety. And get the Suzuki in the puck in better places. Get Caulfield the puck in better places. You hope somebody can find a little bit of that on the power play, and you go from there.
Well, the power play since the All-Star break, ironically, since Caulfield's been hurt and out, has looked amazing. It's clicking at about 25% now, whereas before the All-Star break, they were at about 12 to 13%.
Crazy.
It's a night and day difference.
Yeah. It's just amazing that you could be like at 12%. Like it's hard to do. And it's baffling. Like you look at this team. This might be a bad year because even with a good power play, they're not playoff bound. But like, you're just hoping, like, you don't want to be terrible. Like, not good might be good enough for them. Like, not good on the power play is like really, really a great progression for them. It concerns me a little bit because I find Nick Suzuki is comfortable with the puck, and Cole Caulfield knows what he needs to do, and Matheson as well. If you just got a little bit more out of Drouin this year on the power play, it would have been better. That's something that I find a little bit like they need to be better. And I got to put a little bit of that on Nick Suzuki and maybe Cole Caulfield. I don't know. You have a guy that was averaging almost point a game for a stretch, and you had a guy going for 40, 50 goals, but somehow they couldn't get it done on the power play. So that's something that needs to get better as soon as, quickly.
I think with the power play, it was basically just them. There was no other options. Defenses had a little bit of better time, easier time teeing it up and defending against it. But now with Matheson back, he's actually helping the power play. And I think if Hoffman right now is in that Caulfield spot and he's producing there. But with Matheson back, with Drouin actually playing the way he is, I think maybe if Caulfield were in that spot, the power play would look even better.
Yeah, I just wish that there'd be. I find it with the power play, even Nick Suzuki, who I don't think is a small player because I think he's like 5'11", 200. And once you start getting to the 200 mark, it's hard for me to call you a small player. But Caulfield definitely is, and Gallagher and Drouin. It just, how many times are you going to win a puck battle, right? Below the line, below the dots.
Yeah.
That's where I found they suffered a little bit, just their inability to win those puck battles, which is something I think Armia, the kind of, I look at his game and you look at the stature, you look at the size, you would think he should be better at that. And Anderson should be better at that as well. And they weren't, sorry. So again, losing those puck battles, never getting possession is tough on them.
Now you bring up a couple of names that I was going to talk about here a little bit later on, but heck, you brought them up. So Drouin and Armia, like the all the big names in the trade deadline, they're all off the board now, except for Kane, who everybody thinks he's going to the Rangers here within the next day or so. But other than that, it's all smaller names, a little unknowns, like a Tanner Jeannot, who got a King's ransom, which kind of opens up the door a little bit to a possibility that Hughes can actually move someone like an Armia or a Drouin.
I think if you're a general manager out there and you're willing to pay, I don't think the Canadians can ask for much for Drouin. But I just use the classic, he played with Nathan McKinnon and they were really good at junior. It means absolutely nothing, but as bad his tenure here, it was a fail. Drouin, when you look at the complete body of work, it didn't work out. But if I'm a general manager out there and I just want like my 13th forward, even if he doesn't dress, he doesn't play, somebody that with that skill set, I'd throw it out there. Like, I don't know if you're Pittsburgh there and you're kind of sinking, you got a couple of games in hand. What parting ways with a fourth or a fifth for Jonathan Drouin? I'd give that a ride. They gave Alex Galchenyuk a shot, didn't they? A couple of years ago, like I'd give Drouin a look. Like, man, next to Sidney Crosby, why not? Small sample size, 4 or 5 games, kid. You can't turn it up. Upstairs you go. We get into the playoffs, a couple of blown groins, tweaked knee, and you find yourself back in the lineup. I would do it. I just think with Armia, Blaine, I don't see anybody taking any tenure. That's the problem. No. And I think might serve the Canadians well because maybe Edmondson sticks around for a little bit, and then next year with no tenure left on his contract, maybe the return for him may be greater. It just seems like right now hard to move players that have term still left. Salary cap going up by not enough. And Armia is definitely a player that I'd move off. I'd move on from, definitely, if I had that opportunity. And if you could just walk away from, I don't think the Canadians should be in a position to swallow any money in return. If you want to take the asset, take the asset. But I had Brian Wild on Saturday, and he was talking about, Joshua Wild's got to get his look and Beck's got to get his look. I think they do. I don't know how many young guys I want to plug into the lineup, but if I can move on any contract that has tenure on it, I would look on that. Anderson's the one that's I'm back and forth. If I was talking about it, if Pittsburgh were to call, I would take their first round pick next year, and you just kind of hope the same way that when Ottawa traded Erik Karlsson, to San Jose. San Jose expecting to be a playoff team, and they weren't. And I think they got Tim Stützle off that deal, right? Because San Jose was bad that year. So, I think maybe Pittsburgh. Crosby and Malkin kind of seems like they owe him every deadline. They go out and make some type of acquisition. I think Anderson would be good, but I also like to see Anderson part of the process going forward. I'm a big. I'm buying everything that I'm reading about Pierre-Luc Dubois being a Hab in the next year after, and I'm like, Dubois and Anderson, they were good in Columbus. They're both well over 6 feet. They're both well over 200 pounds. Throw Slavkowski out there on a wing with them as well and go knock some people down. So I'm living in that fantasy world. I'm enjoying it, actually. It's a very nice place. So I'd like to see Anderson part of the process going forward, but if you can get a first for him, I definitely consider it.
Well, with Dubois, it's I know for a fact now he's going to be a Montreal Canadian because today, as we record, it's the 27th, he got hurt. So he guaranteed he's a Hab.
There you go. Fits the profile.
Because they're all hurt.
Yeah. Fits the profile. Not good. I didn't know he got hurt. Did he like a bad hurt or like?
No, I think he tweaked something and they just
Okay.
took him out of practice.
Okay. I enjoy that Winnipeg team.
Yeah.
I know a little bit of the bad blood from when Shifley ran Evans, but I enjoy watching Winnipeg playing. It's a nice little team there. So I'd like to see him get on a little bit of a heater there in the Western Conference.
Well, I'm more upset they stole John Liu away from us.
Dan Roberts. No
And
disrespect to John
Dan.
Liu. I love John
Yeah.
Liu, but yeah, not having Dan was good times. I enjoyed having best thing. No, don't ever tell anybody, and I hope he never sees it. Like sometimes I text him during a game. He texts me during like the game. Like I thought it's so cool. I tell him sometimes, please give me a shout out. Just somehow find a way to mention my name. Those good times. But yeah, they took two of our guys, uncalled for.
Well, Dan's a good blue noser, right? So
yes. He'll remind you of that immediately.
oh yeah.
But if we can go John Liu and Dan Robertson for Pierre-Luc Dubois, as much as I love my boy Dan Robertson, that's a good trade for the Habs.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, in the long term, it's a younger asset.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. But yeah, look, Dan and John went to playoff bound, so good for them. We'll enjoy a little bit of a postseason.
And that you bringing it back to Pittsburgh in the postseason. I think you're right. Crosby and Malkin are there. They owe it to them to take a run. I don't know about Anderson being a piece there, but I mean, they could possibly the Canadians could possibly try and sell them on, I don't know, just about anything else, really. I know they'd want Matheson back right now. So that'd be a king's ransom right there.
Yeah, it's amazing, eh? Like how's good he's looked so well. And I was a big I thought Jeff Petrie would excel there.
Yeah.
I think Jeff Petrie, I thought he was a great Hab, and he had 5 years, and he was terrible. His last year here, he was absolutely terrible, but he had a good run, and I just thought everything with his wife in the States and family in the States, this was just the classic case of a guy just having enough, wanting to go home. You go from 3 wins away from a Stanley Cup, and you pull up next year, and you're a lottery team pretty much coming out of the gate. I'm not making excuses for them, but sometimes it's just human nature. And I thought he was going to fit in really well in Pittsburgh, and he really hasn't. Games kind of come undone the last 2 years. I'm a little bit surprised because he can still skate. Like I tuned into a couple of their games. The last one was the Edmonton Pittsburgh game. I was expecting to see like a good game. It was not. Edmonton just ran him out of the gym. But I've watched a couple of times. Petrie, again, doesn't look like the guy that was good for half a decade. He's a good defenseman for half a decade here, and then just completely fell off the cliff there.
I think maybe they're relying on him a little too much. Just like when he was in Montreal and he became that number one guy, he kind of couldn't. He didn't play to the level he normally would when that pressure was on him. So I think that has a lot to do with his performance so far this year.
Could be, definitely. And even too, like we forget that he was pretty well insulated the cup year. Like, that was peak Ben Sherratt, peak. Never played better in his life, and I don't think he'll ever play at that level again. And Edmonton too. Edmonton was good with the St. Louis Cup run for certain. But I always talk about how Carey Price in that Cup run got a lot of the love, and well deserved. Shea Weber as well. But I thought Edmonton was great in that final run. Never gets enough credit as far as I'm concerned. And Jeff Petrie really fit in well with that group. And then maybe when he's not as insulated, he's not, a little bit older, maybe he's lost a step. But I'm a little bit surprised that how quickly that game has dropped off.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I'm hoping he finds that step back again just in time for the playoffs. So that, I mean, I'm cheering for the guy. I want him to do well.
I like him too. I'm a fan of the. I know on Twitter it gets pretty ugly sometimes. I don't know, man. I'm always a fan of the guys that played for the Habs. Like I cheered for Max Pacioretty in Vegas. I enjoyed PK in Nashville. So I don't know. A lot of people ill will towards Petrie, but when you look back at the last 10 years, Probably Markov, Subban, and Jeff Petrie. And if you look at the body of work, Jeff Petrie might even had a better run than Subban. Subban had, peak Subban was probably better than peaks
Yeah.
Petrie, but there was a stretch there. The guy held down a blue line for a while there. So, and I like to see Pittsburgh in the playoffs too. I'm a sucker for the Crosby, Malkin, Letang. No disrespect to Lou and his Islanders. Like, I try to watch Blaine, but I just still think the Islanders are a tough watch and don't need them.
Yeah.
Like the Penguins and the Bruins in the first round.
Penguins play a little bit more of a fun style, and I know out here, being Halifax, we've got an affinity for Crosby around these parts.
No kidding.
So if it's not him, it's going to be we're going to cheer on McKinnon.
It's a good 1-2 punch you have there.
Yeah. Not so much Brad Marchand. Not so much.
Right? He's not beloved? No, seriously?
No.
Why?
Yeah. It's Brad Marchand.
It's Brad Marchand. Okay.
Yeah.
So would you say so if you were to rank the popularity of teams 1, 2, 3, just in and around your areas, who would be the Habs number 1?
I'd say they're more number 2. Bruins would be number 1.
Who?
Bruins.
The Bruins would be number 1.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
And Pittsburgh would probably be 3.
Wow. I did not know that.
Yeah, well, Boston and Halifax have a pretty close relationship. So all the Boston teams, Red Sox, Celtics, Bruins, they're all pretty popular here.
Okay.
Which was eye-opening when I moved here.
Yeah. I did not know. It's freaking me out. Now, I don't know if I can visit after getting these news. This is very disturbing.
Well, it's not as disturbing as having Brad Marchand living 4 houses over.
Is that where 4 houses over from you? His parents are still there?
No, his house.
He has a house 4 houses over. That's amazing. Yeah. This how he comes back every summer?
Every summer.
Oh man. Have you had run-ins? No, I don't mean like going to blows with Brad Marchand on the drive. So you've come across.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Walk past him. He's walking his dog. I'm walking mine. It's a little chin wag.
Oh, I like that.
How you doing?
That's it.
That's it.
Okay, great. That's funny.
Every now and then the boys on the other side of the lake would get drunk and they come over and, put, like flaming bag of poop on his deck or something. Other than that, not so much.
Amazing. That's amazing. Good for you guys. I'm proud of you guys. That's great.
That's the Pittsburgh fans over there.
Yeah, that's what it is. Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, he's on a good team though, man. So.
Oh my God, they're killing it.
I think it's ridiculous. Like I don't like. This should be the lead story. Like if an NBA team was having this type of season, or I guess an NFL team, you'd have to go like the Patriots. You'd have to start creeping up. But like kind of like the Eagles did this year. Like they went undefeated for so long. But what the Bruins are doing this year, probably it won't get a lot. It'll get a little bit of play. I think the guys on TSN 69, everybody gives them credit. But the year that they're putting together, man,
it's historic.
It's historic. Like when you start looking and your comparables are the late Habs teams of the 70s, and it's incredible. But just because like they're good on paper, but they did have to drag David Krejci out of retirement. So you come back and you think, okay, well, David Krejci's good. You're gonna give him a good few minutes. The guy's been brilliant. Where Patrice Bergeron's mind was, wasn't sold that he was going to come back and have a great year. He had 1 foot out the door. And a lot of those times when you're that pro athlete that's got 1 foot out the door, you come back and maybe you go through the motions, you regret coming back. But man, they've been great. The goalie's going to win a Vezina. Bergeron's going to win something.
Allmark's outscoring Drouin.
Yeah, that's not good. That's not good.
I know.
But I don't know. I don't know who can beat them. I think I like the O'Reilly acquisition with Toronto. I think that's a big time move, and a move that fits well against the Bruins. But will Toronto get to face off against the Bruins? I'm looking at the bottom of the division, the bottom of the conference. I can't see anybody even for a minute shocking. Like the Rangers, if I had to pick somebody that can knock off the Bruins, but what a great year. It pains me, but
Yeah.
they're my arch rival playing. Like I know that people, you and I follow a lot of the same people on social media, and people have an incredible dislike for the Leafs. I honestly don't get it. Like I've seen one in my lifetime. Somebody told me that the Leafs and the Habs played in the 70s. I don't recall it, not a minute of it. I've seen one playoff series in my entire life. It went exactly the way I wanted it to go. Down 3-1 and then beating them 4-3. Like I couldn't have written a better script. And my whole life, when I started watching hockey, probably I remember the cups of the late 70s. I remember the family, uncles, dad, and older brothers around the house. It was on. I remember them winning. I couldn't dissect the game or anything. And then the 80s and 90s was just Habs Bruins. And it baffles my mind when I hear people tell me, "Oh, I Leafs Bruins. I rather the Bruins win." I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, that's like saying Nordiques and Leafs, and you would rather the Nordiques win. No, it doesn't work that way. It's Bruins, Nordiques, and then everybody else. So should be
growing
funny.
up in my house.
Yeah.
Well, growing up in my house, it's all Habs, except for one cousin who was a Nordique fan. So when the team finally moved, we told him he had to leave the family.
That's it.
Yeah.
Go to Colorado. Yeah. That's it. It's only the only way to go. But he grew up in Nordique. It's funny, eh? Wow, Nordique fan. You don't just because you don't find a lot of Nordique fans outside of Quebec. I'm sure if you go to Toronto, there's Bruins fans. Just like Montreal has a big, pretty big Bruins community, and probably in New York and stuff like that. I just don't hear a lot of Nordiques fans outside of Quebec.
Well, growing up in Rouen, Val-d'Or, Témiscamingue, Northern Ontario, Northern Quebec, so the family's all kind of spread around there.
Yeah.
And everybody, it's all French up there too, right? So it's Montreal or Quebec. There wasn't much else.
No, that was a good time.
That one cousin who got hit in the head too many times chose the Nordiques. And
yeah.
It's just the way it is.
Listen,
but
that's sports right there. We gotta love it.
Yeah. And he's been disowned ever since.
Listen, I'd like to tell you he doesn't deserve it, but that's what you
probably does.
It's par for the course, man. I had a daughter. I was telling the story yesterday. We went to Europe last year, and I told my daughters, everybody get a baseball cap. It gets hot and this and that. And so I take my daughters to one of these stores that sells baseball caps. One daughter comes back. She knows where her bread is buttered. She comes back with her Lakers cap, nice white, a little bit of yellow, perfect. Other daughter comes back with a Raptors cap. I'm like, what the hell you want me to do with this? What do you want me to do with this? This is terrible. So she's going to pay for that one day. But that's what it is.
Yeah. I can't say much. I've got my youngest brother lives just outside Toronto now, and he goes to all the Raptors games. And
really?
I feel bad for him. I really do.
It's a part of me that likes the fact that he's going to NBA basketball games, though. That's the.
Oh yeah.
That's the part that I'm a little bit jealous. Not gonna lie to you.
He's around Toronto, though. I mean,
yeah, it's tough. Went to a baseball game last year. That was nice. It was nice. I missed that a little bit. I don't watch as much baseball as I once did. But just sitting third base, foul territory, a couple of hot dogs and stuff like that. It was that was the first time that I really, really missed baseball. That was a nice experience. I don't know how many times I can do it. Sure, half dozen times. I remember when the Expos were here, a lot of the times I would, you go and watch Barry Bonds. You went to watch, Greg Maddux pitch. You went to the park to just watch Mark McGwire. So it was nice. It was the Yankees and the Red Sox last year, and it was really nice atmosphere. Really nice atmosphere.
Yeah, it's I really do miss the Expos. And my dad used to take me to a lot of games, and I haven't really watched baseball since they left.
No,
not really.
I think it's tough. I think it's I don't know, I can say that I watch a lot of NFL, but I grew up without a team in my backyard. But the baseball for me, hard to watch a lot of baseball when there isn't a team in your backyard. I know a lot of guys, everybody does it with their soccer, with their premiership and stuff like that. I think we're just born into that. But I think when you lose something, like Blaine, I remember my favorite thing was to see the Expos box score, to get home and watch Sports Center to see what the Expos did, and then stick around because what mattered even more was an Atlanta Braves loss.
Yeah.
That was like when the Habs play a game, I watch the game. Very rarely do I go and see what the Bruins did that night or what the Leafs did that night. When the highlight comes on, I'll watch it. But that was the one thing with baseball. Like, it mattered what it matters in all sports, but it just seems like it matters a little bit more in baseball what your division rival is doing. So that I remember, so it was a little bit tough to watch baseball when you didn't have a team in your backyard.
It is. I don't know if I'll. I was kind of hoping they'd come back with the Tampa Bay Rays moving to Montreal, but
Yeah,
even that, I don't know.
I think it also it's healthy when you have a baseball team. I think it's healthy because there's a little bit of a disconnect even for a few months from the hockey team. And
Yeah.
I think that sometimes when you don't have that distraction, I see it with with the TSN 690 callers and stuff like that. Sometimes there's a lot of pent up aggression against the hockey team. It's just because there's no disconnect. There's no time to exhale. You're not distracted. It's the only show in town. I would imagine, back in the day, and I wasn't on the station when they had the Expos, or it might have been maybe for like a year or two. And, come July, August, September, maybe a little bit of a pen and push before the Habs got into it, you were distracted. You didn't care what Lane Hudson ate for breakfast in the middle of August, or, Joshua Ottawa, bench pressed only 185 seven times, and let's go to Twitter and break that down. What does it mean for his upper body strength? And but it was nice. It was a healthy distraction for sure. That's something I think the city misses.
Well, at the very least, people are learning math by breaking down Ottawa's bench press. I mean, really, the
Yeah.
angle that he lifts at, and
Yeah.
they're learning
Did
fractions.
he chalk up? Was he wearing gloves, or
Yeah.
dissected every single way? Yeah.
You got to find ways to teach kids, get kids into math so they can find themselves good jobs.
Whatever works.
But back to, because it is a hockey podcast, we'll get back to a little bit of hockey here. Now, Edmondson and Gooley were paired up in practice today in San Jose. They took regular rotation, and it looked like Barron was kind of the odd man out. I don't know. Does that seem kind of like they're going to showcase Edmondson if he plays?
I think so, 1,000%. Listen. I think that there could be trades in place, just like Monahan. I'm not saying that somebody else is going to set your lineup, but if you have people who have expressed interest in Edmondson and Monahan, they don't need to tell you that we'd like to see him play a game or two before we can commit to a first or second or third or whatever pick you decide to give up. I think I think that's exactly what they're doing. I saw, I think it was Arpin who tweeted the lineups. I think that Drouin taking shifts, second line center. Now, again, I don't know how much you can showcase in Blaine. I don't think if he puts together a good stretch, people forget what happened at the beginning of this year and last year. But I think it shows a little bit of something, a little bit of signs of life. So with Edmondson, absolutely. Definitely you want to get him out there and you want to get him a couple of looks. I know that today it seemed like it was popular. Darren Dreger talking about maybe the Habs and the Oilers. That's exactly what they need. Edmondson is exactly what they need. Now, can the math work for one more year on their contract? It seems like it's become pretty trendy now that you're getting a third team involved to swallow up some cap space, and they're compensated for that in some shape, way, or form, whether it's a draft pick or a prospect. But that's exactly what Edmonton needs. So if you get him a couple of minutes here on the West Coast, I think it matters a lot. Nice to see Goulet back out there. I didn't expect him back this year. Good to see him come back. And Barron, it's good. Odd man out. That's fine. We can live with that, right?
For a game or two, sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think he's definitely part of the process. Savard will be another interesting one. He's
Yeah.
been late. I just don't know how much. Like you look at Edmonton and their issues for a long time, right? When they had Taylor Hall, and Jordan Everly, and Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, and Yakupov, and it was just young guy after, and the lineup was littered with guys that tore up the juniors and wherever they came from, but there was no any type of substance when it came to veteran leadership, and you got to be. I think the Canadians got to be careful with that too. Matheson, yeah, he's a vet, but there's also with Savard and Edmondson, I think somebody has to come back. And just kind of like the thing with Matheson is like he's not like he should be only worried about playing at a high level, not being an influencer or a calming influence or a rah-rah guy or to hit the speeches between periods. Like just allow him to play his game, and that should be enough. So I'm wondering how much the Canadians want to take this, because I got to think, like, you're looking at some of the deals that were made. Like, I can't see how somebody's not calling for Savard or for Edmondson.
Oh, the ridiculous prices that GMs are paying. I mean, I know Brisebois was going to take a lot of heat for what he paid for Jeannot, but Jeannot is making, I think it's 800,000. So he fits their cap structure. He's the type of player that they needed to complete the team. Yeah. And winning another cup means a lot more than a first round pick for them. So it fits. And with the veteran presence that you were talking about, Savard, I think, fits perfectly. He's a good de chez nous. He wanted to play in Montreal. He moved his family back. He's got the experience. Keeping him in the lineup until the end of his contract, and I think works out best because he would support the younger guys and insulate them well in the room anyway.
I think 100%. And I just don't know how, with the Canadians, it's just like sometimes, if you're the Rangers, I don't know, LA, those, I'm not, the Habs are a massive market, but, in hockey, a little bit different. And I don't know how often you can go and get help in free agency. And, if you were to let Savard walk and you go and find a version of Savard, but that's a version of Savard that's never been in the locker room, doesn't know what makes Barron tick, doesn't know what makes Harris tick. So you can bring an older guy. It doesn't mean he's going to resonate with the younger players. I'm not inside that locker room. I don't know, what the relationships are, but I know that from the people that we speak to on and off the record, that's a good group. They don't win a lot of hockey games, and they know that. But that's a tight unit. And you got to think that Edmonton, Savard, and some of these guys have a lot to do with that. And they were kind of pressed into that too, right? I think when Edmondson arrived here, he probably thought Shea Weber was going to play for a long time. And if it wasn't going to be Shea Weber, Carey Price was going to be playing for a long time. And Savard can say the same thing as well. And they've kind of been thrust into that. And again, just from the people we speak to, it's a very tight, it's a good locker room. Just need the talent level to be a little bit better, and things will work themselves out.
Yeah, and that type of teamwork, that interconnectivity, that leadership from the outside, I'm judging it from the outside clearly. It looks really strong. I work in an industry where leadership is essential.
Yeah.
And I have to judge the leadership potential of those I'm watching from a distance. And what I'm seeing from these guys is that they're setting themselves up for success, especially around Suzuki. They're giving him every prop up they can find. And this is not something that's going to pay off this year, next year. 5 years down the road is when we're really going to see the real payoff for the work that they're putting in right now to help him out.
I hope it's not 5 years, Wayne. I hope it's a little bit less than that. A little bit less. Please.
Well, within now and then.
Yeah. But yeah, look, I don't think it's something, I think that, like captaincies, I think there's too much put on that and this and that. But I think there's definitely, And you're looking at a team that's going to turn over here, right? And Roy is going to make his way to the lineup, and Beck's going to make his way into the lineup, and Hoffman's days are numbered, and Drouin's days are numbered. And then you go on the back end, like the guys we've mentioned already, and Harris and Norlander, Ulonen, and Barron, and we're just rattling off young player after young player. You're going to need something back there because when the poo hits the fan, somebody needs to lead by example. And even for Nick Suzuki too, like he's the captain and all that, but for me with Nick Suzuki, I'm like, I don't want him to be a leader. I want him to be a point of game guy. Like, I not that it matters that he has the C or doesn't have the C. My vote for the C was always going to be Edmondson. I'm like, just let Nick Suzuki go play hockey, not have to get into somebody's face. When they lose 5 games in a row, doesn't have to stand up in front of the room and circle the wagons or any of those things. Just let him focus on hockey. And I don't think that anything that they've done this year, the losing streaks or anything, has anything to do with his leadership. It has everything to do with the amount of talent that they put on the ice on a nightly basis. But you definitely need, when things are going to go bad, especially a young group. And I use that example of the Oilers from back then when there was just, they look around the room and nobody had an answer for anything. So it'll be interesting to see how Hughes plays this going forward, because I just think that people will call for Savard and people will call for Edmondson as well.
Yeah, I think Savard's more of a guy that maybe next year they might get some calls, but right now I think Edmondson's probably him and Matheson are probably the 2 defensemen that Hughes is going to get calls on, and Edmondson's probably the only one he's willing to move.
It's just how much does he value that 3rd first round pick? And I think Edmondson, I don't think will go for a first. I know a lot of people talk about how Ben Sherratt went for a first last year to Florida. He did, but general managers have learned from that. They don't general manager doesn't double down because Florida made a mistake. Then I'm going to jump in there and I'm going to make a mistake as well. That's not how general managers work. So I think they'll be a little bit more reluctant to hand out that first round pick. But Matheson is a name that's popped up. I know that there's been a couple of sports hosts in this city on the French side that have mentioned it. That's the only thing intriguing there is, what first round pick you want to get and how badly do you want a 3rd first round pick?
It's a pretty deep draft, but
I just don't think that there's going to be an impact player for the upcoming year or the year after between 25 and 32. Now, we spoke about the Dallas Stars before. Their 2 best players, they're both point-of-game players, and they got both of them in the 2nd round. I get that.
And, yeah.
I get that.
And if you move Matheson,
we can also play the game that how many 2nd-round picks are not point-of-game players. There's probably a lot more, but I just can't see how they'd move on Matheson. Like, they went and got him, right? We circled him and they brought him on the club. I think they're happy with what they've seen. I'd be very surprised if they move. They'd have to get completely blown away by a deal.
And when you think about it, let's say you trade him for that 3rd first round pick this year. In 3 years' time, you'll be lucky for that player to become the next Matheson.
Sure.
So you're not really not moving up anything.
No, he's got to exceed for that deal to work out. He's got to be better than what Mike Matheson is right now. And I don't, Mike's not all world, but he's good. Fits kind of what they're trying to do. They want a lot of foot speed back there. So you're right about that. That player has to exceed whatever Mike Matheson's value is. And look, it's nice to have all the prospects, but we can rattle, like, how deep are the Habs on the blue line when it comes to prospects too, right? They're not all going to play, or at least they're not all going to play for the Canadiens, because there's too many bodies back there. So at some point you'll have to make certain decisions. But I'm just thinking, I don't think they make that decision with Matheson. I think they went and got him for a reason.
I agree. And before I let you go,
sure.
We're in the trade deadline week.
Yeah.
How bad do you feel for the TV guys on Friday when all the trades are already done now?
I feel bad for me. I'm in with the Campbell versus Gallo. We're in for Melnick between 2 and 6 on Friday. So yeah, I feel more bad for Campbell and Gallo and myself. No disrespect to James Duthie. I'm pretty certain he's going to get paid a lot more for that shift that he does than the shift the three of us are going to do on TSN 690 on Friday between 2 and 6. I don't know. I just maybe the Kane, but again, I'd be blown away if he doesn't go to the Rangers. But no, it's just going to be a whole lot of recapping. It's kind of crazy, like the way things just took off on the weekend. Like somebody made their move. I think the O'Reilly move was the one that triggered everybody. It happened. Everybody settled in for a few days. Everybody got on the phone, but that was the deal that sent everybody. The Bruins made their move with Orlov. Tampa Bay seems like they've made their move. The Islanders were first up with Bo Horvat, but it kind of seems like the arms race started the moment the Leafs got O'Reilly. I'm more interested to see what's going to happen. With the Habs, okay, Drouin goes and stuff like that. I don't think it's a game changer or anything like that, but I'll be interested to see what happens in Edmonton. It's the one spot that intrigues me. Will they try to go get better at goaltending? I don't know if they can. Will they try to get better on that blue line? I think they should. That's the one team that intrigues me. And there's not a lot of bodies left unless somebody out of nowhere. I like to see Buffalo make a move.
Yeah, well, they've got the cap space to take on an entire NHL team now.
Yeah, and you know what? I know you're playing with house money. You weren't supposed to be in the postseason, but man, that's a good little hockey team. I don't know, just tweak the lineup, make it a little bit better. I don't think they can knock off Carolina or the Bruins, but I'd like to, I think that the way I've looked at it, and a lot of trade deadlines, and sometimes that I was critical of Mark Bergevin because the time he did it with Thomas Vanek, it was gold. It worked out. They got to a conference final, and Thomas Vanek was playing at a point a game clip there for a while in the regular season. I just think that you can ask your players to do so much, and with the Buffalo Sabres, I think they've asked their players to do whatever it is, and they've exceeded expectations. And for me, as a general manager, I'd like to throw them a bone, and what that bone may be, man, just another NHL body that is better than one of the guys that they have on their bottom six. So I like to see Buffalo. I'm a fan. I've watched that franchise my entire life. No aggression towards them. Was a big fan of Pat LaFontaine growing up. So I'd like to see that team do well. And if they can just get a little bit better somewhere, wherever, I can't really tell you that I can dissect that team, but if they can get somewhere a little bit better, I'd love to see that Buffalo team get a little bit better.
Honestly, for the fan base there, I think that would be amazing. They haven't seen a playoff game in so long. Even if you just you reward the team with a little bit of you guys have done good. Here's a little extra help. And on top of that, you get the fans involved in a playoff run again. Well, at least a playoff series, and you give a little bit of experience to young guys like Darlene and Power, and the whole group. They could use that.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. It's been a great year for them. I do believe that they'll be postseason bound this year. But forget what happens between game 1 and 82. What happens the moment that team hits the ice in game 83? That's bad for the Habs, right? Because that team is going to taste that, and they're going to be, that they'll be back next year looking for the same thing. Jeff Skinner having a good year. Tage Thompson is an absolute beast. And like you said, I like that fan base. They've been through enough. Their football team has been through enough as well. They've brought those fans through the ringer. Every time I turn on the news, there's like a snowstorm that's hitting them that it's like epic, biblical. So, maybe a little bit of hockey relief in April for the good fans in Buffalo would be ideal.
Well, absolutely. And I think it's good for the Canadiens to have a little bit of a rivalry going, because there's going to be the Leafs are going to start dropping. The Bruins are probably going to take a dip, and it's the Canadiens, the Sabres, the Red Wings. Those are the teams that are going to start picking it up. So I'm looking forward to that kind of a little bit of a rivalry there. Mostly because that, and I really want to see Toronto dip.
They might. That's that Austin Mast move from a couple of years ago when he took that 5-year contract. I said it then. Like, people were like, "Why didn't he take the money?" I'm like, "Because he's smart. Because his team, his think tank, is smart." And Connor McDavid probably going to wish. Depending on how this year goes, because we got to remember they got to a conference final last year, and to me, as a fan of any team that I root for, if you're in one of the final four, to me, it's been a successful year. What you do after that is just gravy. But we'll see what happens with Matthews and Willie Nylander's his contract's coming up too, and he's as good as he's one of the 20 best players in the league. So they're on the clock. Well, you see it on the clock. You see with every move that they make that they're on the clock. I like the brand of hockey that they play. But yeah, Sens is another team that Buffalo Sens and the Habs that they're on the bottom of that Atlantic division. But I do believe, like you, it's about to turn. Although I've said that for the last couple of years of the Bruins, specifically going into this year, I didn't think they were going to be even playoff bound, let alone chase down the 140-point plateau. So I'll just stop talking about the Bruins. But yeah, those will be the teams that'll be going forward, man. I like what Buffalo's done. I like what they've done on their blue line. Again, we mentioned Carolina and the Rangers, teams that have and Boston that have been successful because what they've done on the blue line. And you look at Buffalo as well. They've gotten a lot better because guys on that blue line know how to handle the puck.
Now, before I let you go, why don't you let everybody who's watching and listening know where your new show is located? So
on TSN 690, Saturdays and Sundays, the starters between 7 a.m. and 9 a.m. with Joey Alfieri and Dave Trentadue. It's nice. I like doing the 7 to 9 thing. Just started that we had lost the local radio. And I just thought that there was, I've never pitched for a show. I've never asked when others have left the station. I've never threw my name in the mix. For those who don't know, I'm a full-time real estate broker. And I've been part-time with the radio station for about 15 years. And I love the relationship I have with the station. They need me, I go. If they need me and I can't go, I go the next time. But I just felt that there was a void when it came to a little bit of the Saturday, Sunday, early morning stuff. So we put it together with Joey and Dave, and we got ourselves a little show on Saturday and Sunday mornings between 7 and 9.
Well, I'm just glad that there's finally a show to listen to that early in the morning, because even on the weekends, I got to get up at that hour.
Me too, brother.
It's good to fill it in a little bit.
That was my thing. I used to go on my coffee runs, and I love college basketball, but I didn't want to hear about Syracuse and Georgetown going off on the 12 o'clock tip-off. Not now, not Saturday morning. I don't need to hear this now.
Exactly. But Simon, I really want to thank you for coming on. I know it's been a long time coming, and that's my fault for not asking sooner, but I really appreciate you jumping on board as soon as I asked and coming on and just shoot the breeze about not just hockey, but all sports and the little chat we had before we came on air.
That's it. I appreciate it, man. Anytime. Love reaching out, love talking pucks, love talking Habs. So don't be a stranger.
I won't. Thank you very much. And for my listeners, thank you guys for listening. Keep sending in those requests, those emails, the interactions on social media. And remember, if you're talking about it,